No warning, no negotiation, just impact. At 2:37 a.m., Eastern Russia was asleep and blind. Then the sky screamed. From the black waters of the Bering Sea, 9 U.S. Fa-18 Super Hornets ripped off the deck of the USS Ronald Reagan, flames trailing from their afterburners like knives through the dark. At the same moment, from the west, 60 Ukrainian drones, handcrafted, cloaked, and programmed to deceive, pierced Russian airspace. They flew low, they flew silent, and they flew with purpose. Blind the bear. In under 72 seconds, radar stations along a 50-kilometer arc went black. No pings, no echoes, only static. Russia's eyes had been gouged out before it even knew there was a fight. Then came the second wave. 6 EA-18G Growlers, crawling just 300 feet above the treetops, bathed the spectrum in chaos. ALQ-28 jammers detonated the electromagnetic spectrum, frying sensors, corrupting targeting data, and feeding false signatures into every Russian console. And behind the noise came the blade. 9 Super Hornets locked in on a single target, a 14-car military train slicing through the forest at 70 mm. This wasn't just fuel and freight. This was a billion-dollar artery, pumping weapons-grade propellant and missile hardware into 3 underground ICBM launch sites being built in total secrecy. If completed, those bases could strike Chicago in 27 minutes, Washington in 32. This train wasn't cargo, it was a fuse, and America had come to cut it. The first bomb hit Car 7, volatile oxidizers. The second triggered the munitions. The third ignited hell. A 300-foot fireball rose like a nuclear ghost. Shockwaves shattered windows in towns 15 miles away. Forests incinerated, steel melted, and within 8 minutes, Russia's most expensive weapons convoy since the Cold War was erased. No survivors, no salvage, no mercy. And still, the real strike hadn't even begun. The train was just the beginning. The matchstick, the fuse. But the warhead, that was buried deeper. For 18 days, American satellites noticed something wrong. Too much heat, too much movement, too much concrete, in the middle of nowhere. In the frozen shadows of the Russian Far East, just 400 miles from the Arctic Circle, 3 military installations were rising like tumors beneath the snow. No flags, no insignias, just bunkers, domes, and vertical silos, going up fast, too fast. What US analysts found next made the Pentagon flinch. Each base was designed to house RS-28 Sarmat missiles, codenamed Satan II, intercontinental, nuclear. 10 warheads per launch. Enough firepower to vaporize 8 cities in a single strike. Range, 6,500 miles. Chicago, 27 minutes. Washington, 32. These weren't relics of Cold War deterrence. They were first strike platforms, engineered to hit fast and bypass US early warning systems. And they were nearly operational. Meanwhile, Ukraine's defense ministry tracked a horrifying pattern. 1.2-mile-long trains, loaded with warhead components, thermal guidance arrays, solid fuel oxidizers, and mobile EW units, moving day and night toward the 3 launch sites. Over $2.3 billion in equipment, rolling straight into hardened silos. It wasn't defense. It wasn't posturing. It was a corridor of fire, built for one thing: to hold the U.S. homeland at gunpoint. In a closed-door briefing at the White House, a U.S. general said one sentence that ended the debate. If we wait, we won't be fighting in Eastern Europe. We'll be defending Seattle. Within hours, the Joint Chiefs gave the go-ahead. This wasn't about Ukraine anymore. It was about preemption. It was about neutralizing the strike before it ever launched. And now, with the convoy gone, the bunkers were next. The train was gone. Now the bunkers would burn. At 03:12 a.m., Russian radar operators near Khabarovsk Krai detected something strange. A flicker, too faint to track, too fast to scramble against. They never realized what was coming until it hit. From two directions, the second wave surged forward. 5 U.S. Super Hornets, armed with JDAM bunker busters. 4 F-15E Strike Eagles, flying overwatch and suppression. And behind them, another swarm of Ukrainian drones, not for jamming this time, but for illumination and confirmation. Their mission: reduce 3 nuclear launch bases, each valued over $1.5 billion, to radioactive gravel. Target 1, SoCal-17, Command Node, a reinforced concrete dome housing encrypted launch codes, nuclear target maps, and senior missile officers. A GBU-31 penetrator, 2,000 pounds of steel-tipped death, dropped from 30,000 feet and punched through 3 meters of reinforced concrete. The secondary explosion blew the dome inside out. 43 Russian personnel were confirmed dead, including 2 top-tier weapons engineers. Shock monitors in neighboring infrastructure detected a 1.5-ton TNT equivalent blast. Nothing remained, not even ash. Target 2, Baikal. 3, warhead storage drone relays fed live thermal coordinates to incoming jets. Inside, 14 tons of solid fuel propellant and multiple RS-28 warheads in stasis. The first strike tore through the roof. The second ignited the propellant. The explosion ejected flame 100 feet into the air. Tremors were felt 91 miles away. Russian state media labeled it a natural gas accident. They lied, and the world knew it. Target 3, Krylo 9, barracks and logistics, 200 Russian soldiers, minimal air defense, 0 hardened shelters. They weren't ready. They never stood a chance. At 03:41 a.m., 3 precision-guided bombs struck the 270-foot-long barracks compound. One hit dead center. The roof collapsed inward. Flames spread uncontrollably. Explosions triggered every 5 minutes for the next 3 hours. Emergency teams couldn't even approach. The ground was too hot to land on. Intercepted Russian military comms told the truth. Krylo 9 is gone. We are pulling out. Total structural loss. By 03:53 a.m., it was done. What took Russia 17 days and $4.5 billion to build was turned to molten debris in 11 minutes. No speeches, no negotiations, only fire. And the world had only just begun to understand what it meant. By dawn, the smoke hadn't cleared, but the message had. 3 nuclear launch sites erased, $1 billion convoy vaporized, 230 Russian personnel gone. Total time elapsed 15 minutes, 9 seconds. At 07:00 a.m., Washington time, the President of the United States stepped into the Oval Office. There were no cameras in the room, no teleprompter, only steel in his voice. America does not wait for threats to reach our shores. We meet them where they rise. If you point a nuclear weapon at our homeland, you won't get a warning. You'll get a crater. The statement was broadcast in 6 languages, across 12 defense networks, and relayed directly to the Kremlin. But that wasn't all. Inside NATO's secure command chamber in Brussels, alarms were still flashing. Not from Russia, but from a drone signature 40 kilometers east of Krylo 9. It wasn't Russian, it wasn't Ukrainian, it was Chinese. High-altitude ISR assets had picked up a long-endurance surveillance UAV, loitering silently above the battlefield moments before the strike. Beijing had been watching, closely, silently, and they weren't alone. Across the Pacific, defense ministries in Japan, South Korea, and Australia issued synchronized threat-level escalations. Satellite imagery suggested similar construction activity near Chinese and Russian naval installations in the Pacific Arctic zone. Iron Torch hadn't just destroyed targets, it had ripped the mask off a larger game. Meanwhile, in Kiev, the commander of Ukraine's Air Force issued a rare joint statement alongside the U.S. Indo-Pacific commander. While others feared escalation, America acted. With every drone we launch, we honor that decision and reclaim our sky. On social media, satellite footage of the scorched bunkers and cratered silos exploded. 22 million views in 6 hours, no music, no filters, just fire, debris, and vapor trails. This wasn't warfare as the world remembered it. This was the new doctrine. Strike fast. Strike deep. Leave nothing behind. And now, every capital was asking the same question. If America could do this to Russia, what happens when the next tyrant oversteps the line? Operation Iron Torch didn't just cripple Russia's newest nuclear assets. It shattered an illusion. That distance still protects tyrants. That escalation must always be mutual. That America would wait to bleed before it strikes. That era ended before sunrise. Inside NORAD's war room, generals reviewed the post-strike telemetry. The Russians never saw it coming. Their long-range radar was blind. Their command uplinks were severed for 8 full minutes. Enough time for 3 missile bases to vanish from the Earth. American analysts called it a decapitation strike, not just on infrastructure, but on doctrine itself. Russia built silence. America answered with precision. But beneath the victory, another truth emerged. This was no longer just about Ukraine. It was a message to every actor watching from the shadows, from Tehran to Beijing, Pyongyang to Minsk. You build in secret. We strike without a sound. You threaten with reach. We'll end you before you launch. You think distance protects you. Our drones say otherwise. Across the American homeland, from military families in Kentucky to veterans in Nevada, there was no debate. They watched the flames. They saw the footage. They heard the silence that came after. And they understood. America still leads. America still strikes. And when needed, America still wins. In a world where war now begins with code and ends with craters, readiness is peace, speed is survival, preemption is deterrence. So tonight, as satellites recalibrate and generals recalibrate doctrine, one truth remains etched into scorched Russian soil. You don't threaten the American homeland and walk away. You vanish, and no one hears you fall.